Hello YouTube, welcome to Curious Me channel. This is Shabazz Khan, and in this video we will learn about ASP.NET Core middlewares. Well, what are middlewares? They are pieces of codes that gets assembled into an app pipeline to handle HTTP requests and responses. I know there are a lot of big words like app pipeline, request and response, but don't worry, we will go through each of middleware's responsibilities, and finally I'll show you what is an app pipeline and how you can set up the app pipeline and how middleware works. Okay, so don't worry, first few minutes of the video will be some theory and the next will be some practical. All right, so let's dive in. Okay, so here you can see in this diagram that there are three middlewares. Imagine this entire diagram is an app pipeline and there are three middlewares configured in that pipeline. What is happening here is the request is coming to the first middleware and some logic is being performed on that piece of request before it is passed on to the next middleware. Now what happens here is some more logic is performed on this middleware 2 before it is passed to middleware 3. Now middleware 3 does some work and returns the response to middleware 2. Now middleware 2 also performs some logic and then returns it to middleware 1, and then middleware 1 also performs some logic and then returns it to the application. Anyone which generated this request receives this response. Fine. Now this logic may be there, may not be there. Okay, we'll see how it happens. So this is a very basic example of how middlewares work. Now let me show you some nice examples. So here you can see this is a bunch of middlewares as the name suggests. And now one more thing to notice here is each middleware is responsible for a very specific task. As you can see, this middleware is responsible for only logging exceptions. This middleware is responsible for authentication. This middleware is responsible for serving static files, and this middleware is responsible for handling MVC related codes. So each middleware has a very specific task, and this is a pipeline. As you can see, this is the app pipeline, and in a similar fashion, this request comes in, hits the first middleware, passes on to next, and the response comes in the similar fashion. All right, so let's move on. Now, one thing to notice here is the arrangement of middlewares. So the first one logs exception, the second one is authentication, third one is static files, fourth one is MVC. This ordering is very important. So let me show you a diagram. Here you can see that our very first middleware is static files. And then after that we have MVC. And then after that we have authentication. Now what happens is when the request comes to static files, okay, and then it goes to MVC, suppose you are accessing some secure data, it returns. Okay. Now this authentication, which you forgot to add before, is added in the end. Your authentication middleware will never get activated and the authentication of your web application will never happen. So as you can see, this very good looking cross here indicates that your request and response is never reaching this authentication, and your application is always serving all the files to the request generating application or the user. Okay, so this is why you should keep in mind that the ordering of middleware is very important. Okay, now as the slide says, short circuit. So basically it is literally short circuit that we will discuss in a way. So basically what happens here is as you can see, there are multiple middlewares. Request comes to the first middleware, goes to our authentication middleware. Now suppose the authentication fails. Okay, this request no longer goes to our next middleware. It is returned from the authentication middleware itself. This is known as short circuit. This is a terminology used in .NET MVC. So I just explain this to you. We'll see all these things. Don't worry about it. Okay. So this is a simple explanation of what a short circuit is. Yeah, that's it. That was all the theory. Now you must be wondering that, okay, middlewares are assembled in app pipeline, but where is this pipeline exactly? Where is this pipeline? So if you remember from our startup.cs file exploration video, and if you are not familiar with it, you can check this out from this tab here. Just look at the cursor, or the link is also in the description down below. So you can get to that video from there itself. If you remember, in that video, we we explored the startup.cs file. Let me just open the Visual Studio Code. Now, if you remember, we explored this file and said we'll come back to this. Now, this file has two methods. First is configure service, another one is configure. And if you remember, I told you in that video that this specific configure is used to configure HTTP request pipeline. Yes, this is your app pipeline. As simple as that. Okay, now so here you can see there are a lot of middlewares that has been already configured by our template. So let me comment all of these out. The reason why I'm commenting this out is to create very simple middlewares and then explain it to you guys like how middlewares function, or how you can create your own middlewares, or how this setup works. Okay, so even though if you don't want to create any middleware, you just have an idea as to why we are writing all these pieces of code and what is happening internally. So without further ado, let's dive in. First and foremost, what I'll do is I'll do app.run. First, let me write this async. Okay, so now let's explore this very simple middleware code and see what it does basically. So this app.run, it is an application code which uses HTTP context object to access incoming request and outgoing responses. All right. Now, as you can see in this context object is nothing. This context object, it is nothing but an HTTP context object itself. You can see in this detail like Microsoft HTTP context. Now, this HTTP context, it has both response and request. So let me just show it to you with that it contains request also. So context.request. Okay. All the middlewares in ASP.NET Core uses this HTTP context object to access request and response. If you remember from our previous videos, we always showed you the diagram and there was HTTP context always. So this is how middlewares communicate. Basically what we are doing in this code is we are getting that HTTP context object, accessing the response, and in the body of that response, we are writing hello from middleware. So let's run this application and see what happens. Okay, now our application is hosted on local HTTP localhost 5001. Let me open it. Let me open a browser and type in localhost 5001. Here you can see we get hello from middleware. Now, one thing to notice here is you only get this as a text. It is not an HTML code. It is not anything. It is simply, wait, let me view page source. All right. Here you will see it is just a text. There is no HTML code, nothing. Okay. So what this means is currently this middleware, there is only one middleware in our application. No matter which link you go to, you will always get this response only, no matter what you write. Okay, let's write something like my app.html, no matter what you write. Why? Because this happens because you have only one middleware configured. And right now your ASP.NET Core application only knows to return this. Okay, because there is only one middleware. That's it. Okay, so let's go ahead and add another middleware. And just like we saw in our code, in our slides previously, now we should get two. Okay, first one should be hello from middleware, another one should be hello from another middleware. Let me quickly run this again. Now let me refresh this. Something is wrong or what? Okay, so now you can see, no, nothing is wrong. I was just trying to be dramatic anyways. Hello from middleware. Why didn't we see this hello from another middleware? Well, the reason is, let me hover over this run, and here you will see one very keywordy stuff. Here it says adds a terminal middleware. Okay. Now what is a terminal middleware? Terminal middleware is when, let me show it to you. Okay, so let's use this slide as an example. Now, what is a terminal middleware? Terminal middleware is the middleware which is always at the end, or the middleware which always returns the response without forwarding it. Basically, this middleware takes the response, okay, and it lacks the, logic to call another middleware. It basically returns the response. So this is a terminal middleware. Okay, and terminal middleware is always the endpoint of the application pipeline. All right, so let's open the code again and see that we have two terminal middlewares. And from our previous explanation, the code returns from here itself. It never reaches here. So how can we write a middleware which calls another middleware? So for that, we use app.use. So let me just quickly change this. App.use. Now app.use, it gives us access to a very nice command and we call it next. Now this next is very simply a method which we can invoke, okay, to call the next next middleware in our pipeline. As simple as that. Now basically what I'm saying in this code is write this in the response body and call the next middleware in the pipeline. What is the next middleware in our pipeline? This. So what will happen here is this will get called. It will write this hello from middleware in the response body, and it will call the next middleware in the pipeline. So this middleware will get called, and then again this specific code will write hello from another middleware in the body, and it will return the control to this, and you will get the response. Okay, now let me stop this, rerun this. Let's open our application again and let's refresh this. Yes, now you can see hello from middleware, and then again we are seeing hello from another middleware. Okay, simple. Let's add another middleware to show you ordering. Okay, so now we have three middlewares. Okay, let's add some piece of code. I'm saying before forwarding to middleware 2. All right, let me copy this. Middleware 2. Okay, now let's copy this. Let's paste it here. Let's change this 2 to 3 and after middleware 3. Okay, and hello from another middleware, and we'll replace this with MW3. Okay. Okay, fine. Okay, one thing I like to do here is just to, give us a very clean representation, I'll add a new line. So basically what I'm doing here is adding a new line so that after printing this, we'll get a new line so that each of our messages are in a separate line. Yeah, that's it. So basically our middleware is set up. Let's stop this, run this again. Okay, so let's open our browser. Let's refresh this. Okay, now let's let's see the ordering. Okay, and I explained in the slide why ordering is important, correct? So this is how it happens here. So basically what is happening is our request hits the first middleware, prints, writes in the response before forwarding to MW2. And then this next is called, okay, let me just bring this to next line. Yeah, so that we can, see that properly. Okay, so basically what is happening here is since this is our application pipeline, what is happening is our request is hitting the very first middleware in the pipeline. Now what happens is this gets written in your response body, and then the next middleware is called. So the next middleware in the pipeline is this one. this gets written in the body. Wait. Okay. You can see this before forwarding to MW3. Now again this await next is called, which takes us to the next middleware. This is the middleware which gets called. This hello from middleware 3 is written in our response. Okay. Now this app.run, this is our terminal middleware. As we discussed, this will not forward to any other middlewares but return the response. So this will return the response to the previous middleware, and after this line will get executed, and you'll see after MW3. And once this is done, this response goes to this middleware, and you see after MW2, okay, which is here. Simple. So the order in which you write your middleware is kind of important, not kind of, it is very important. Okay. So this basically represents the very first image that we saw in our application, as you can see here. Okay. Now let's quickly see an example of short circuit. Okay. Now short circuit, as we discussed, is when the next middleware, when the next middleware in the pipeline is not called. So I'll write a very small if condition. If true, I'll just say if true. Okay. If false, then call this next, which will never happen. Okay. See, it says unreachable code. I don't care because I just want to show you what is short circuiting. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm writing a condition based on which you will get this. You will call the next middleware. And if this condition fails, you will not call this middleware. So basically kind of short circuiting our middleware. Okay. So let's run this. So we'll ignore this warning, refresh this. And now here you can see our request never reached this app.run because this condition failed. That's it. That's the example of short circuit. Okay. Now just to revise this, middlewares are pieces of codes that are configured or that are written in your app pipeline. And basically each middleware is responsible for a single task. Okay. Ordering is very important. And the last, or, there is a terminal middleware where your request terminates and the response is returned back from. And if a middleware does not call the next middleware and returns the response from there itself, it is simply called short circuiting the pipeline. Okay, so yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything regarding middleware. Let's explore this also. So basically, let me just quickly uncomment this code. Now what is happening here is, now we know that the ordering is important. Now we know that there are terminal middlewares and there are short circuiting happening in ASP.NET Core. So now with that in mind, what we can see here is that if this condition is false, then this middleware true. If development, then this middleware is called. Otherwise, this middleware is called. These middlewares are called. Now, okay, of course, and the first middleware in our application is the exception, which is always present. Now, the second one is HTTPS redirection, then static files, then routing, and then our authorization. Before, using our MVC or any of our secured resource, we can see we have our app.useAuthorizations. All right. So this is how the middleware ordering is done by default with our template. Now, if you need something, you go check out the ordering first. You want to place it after authorization. You want to place it before authorization. There are so many things involved. So don't worry about this because I just explained it to you. So before, I didn't explain this to you earlier because I wanted to clear up middleware. Now I think you must have a rough idea of why this is in this particular order and why is this piece of code here at all. Okay. I hope this was clear. And if it is not clear, please leave comments in the comment section. I'll try to reply I try to reply to each and every comment. So with this, let's end this video, and yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Bye bye.